Fellow humans of planet Earth, please listen to this while you are fully present. Momentarily suspend your beliefs and notions. This message is best received when we are open and available to what our universe is capable of. The intention of this message is unity and peace in the thoughts, emotions, words, and actions of all humans. As people, our deepest desire is to lead a fulfilling life. The path to living a fulfilling life starts with inward exploration and understanding your heart. In your heart, you touch your life's purpose. That life's purpose is to pursue your heart's vision for the world. This very exploration process, this journey, creates fulfillment for the self. It is fulfilling to the individual, and the exploration of your heart's vision is beneficial for the world. The journey of finding your heart's vision for the world connects you deeply to the wonders in life. It makes good use of life's suffering, and no matter what is in your heart, your pursuits are noble, your contributions conscious with genuine intent. And in that state of existence, you can live a life of extraordinary fulfillment, even in eras of immense suffering. With a united and proportionate effort, we transform our greatest challenges into humanity's most fulfilling journey. What matters to us? Regardless of individual beliefs and values, most appear to care deeply about one or many of these matters. Prosperity for myself, my people, my business, my government and country, economic mobility and democratized opportunity, justice and rights, including the design and enforcement of human laws, citizen, employee, consumer, and/or owner rights, people's input into government and business decisions, proportionate and immediate united climate action. Not everything will be important to everyone, but generally, one or many or all will matter to the majority of human beings. Many of these matters relate to our macro stakeholders that we depend on as individuals. That is, our key stakeholders of world, society, and prosperity, which dictate and drive many of our actions. The desires we have in life are highly dependent on all three functioning well, and all three stakeholders are interrelated in nature. Worth noting, most things that are important to you, you are not in control of. We can step back and see how significant accomplishments require contributions from significant numbers of people. There is a loving surrender in accepting the fact that you need others to make your heart's vision a reality. You need others to participate in some way in order to be fulfilled. By the end of this video, we'll understand our power as people is in our collective wealth and united economic action. Our experiences and outcomes as divided people versus united people, and why we must unite as people now in order to unite our economic ecosystem of business, people, and government so that we can evolve what matters to us. We the people are the economy. This video on the economic machine by Ray Dalio, one of the world's recognized leading economic thinkers, helps us understand how our economy is built on transactions. In this video, he says, all cycles and all forces in an economy are driven by transactions. And who makes those transactions? People. And how do people transact? People consume or buy. People work. People pay taxes. You might think of some other categories, but generally, these are three primary ways in which we transact as people. Now, if we apply this insight, we see that our power as people is in our collective wealth and how we use it through our transactions. Throughout the course of building our society, we may have lost perspective on our power as united people. We as a society participate in systemic actions that create the perception that money is more valuable than people, and forces of division help perpetuate this untrue perspective. However, when we look deeply, we see that the source of money is people. Without people, there is no wealth to be had. And so, where we put our energy as people can have a significant impact. Where we put our money can have a significant impact. It is important for us to remember our obligation, our role as people in our society, and especially our influence as consumers, investors, citizens, and employees. We, as united people, have extraordinary power. People create thriving conditions for our world, society, and prosperity by evolving from divided people towards united people. The decisions we make as a government, as a member of our businesses, and as people, groups, or individuals impact our world, our society, and our prosperity. When people are divided, we witness our world, society, and often prosperity decline. Throughout history, we see how divided people played a role in humanity's most tragic experiences, from the extinction of civilizations to world wars to the Holocaust to atomic bombs to the many genocides we've experienced as a world community. Our division can also be triggered by seemingly indirect consequences, such as major disease or catastrophic weather events. As divided people, we relinquish our power. Business and government cannot operate to their full potential when people are divided. For simplicity, people have been classified into consumers, employees, and investors. As consumers, we have significant power. We determine to a large extent the demand of our markets. The revenues of our businesses are directly and indirectly dependent on consumers. As investors, we have significant power. Investors empower organizations with money in exchange for a return on investment. As employees, we have some power, where if an organization had no employees, it would be difficult or impossible to produce and distribute products and services. What people lack is a system to effectively organize, unite, and use our wealth, our economic power, to drive change that supports not just people, but helps business and government to thrive. As divided people, the zone of impact is disproportionately skewed towards business and government, which has a system to create change, but is limited to the extent the people cooperate. To recap, divided people minimize their influence and voice. The collective wealth of the people has power, especially in the roles of consumer, investor, and employee. However, people do not have an effective system to harness the power of collective wealth and united economic action. The net effect is that our society, world, and prosperity diminishes when we think, act, and practice division. The seeds of our division are fear, anger, and greed. We, as an ecosystem of business, people, and government, have given much unwise attention to nourishing such seeds. As united people, we directionally improve our world, society, and prosperity. Since we do not have an effective system for doing so that is inclusive in nature, we have the technological capability to build a system for the people, one that reflects the practice of unity and that empowers the voice of all people in all roles as consumers, investors, employees, citizens, as well as business and government leaders. A system for united people to transform world, society, and prosperity. People incentivize industry, business, and government to make decisions that improve stakeholder outcomes and experiences on a managed basis, on an ongoing basis. People reward with revenue, investment, productivity, market share, votes, taxes, when industry, business, and government actions align with asks from united people. Together, we can move from the cycle of division, which leads to our deteriorating conditions, to the cycle of unity. It is the cycle of unity where we take collective instead of individual action to transform deteriorating into thriving conditions. The conditions of our division require united and proportionate collective action towards systemic evolutionary outcomes. To transform existing undesirable conditions, we start by taking inventory of our current conditions. We are in a cycle of responding to system-level challenges with individual actions. As divided people, our individual actions are not leading to systemic evolutionary outcomes. We must understand the suffering caused by our division, which led to the conditions we currently experience. The intention is not to demonize any person or group or to feel perpetual despair.
The intention is to cultivate a compassionate understanding and to care about each other's lived experience so we can collectively transform harmful conditions. So we re-examine our actions as divided people, business, and government, and how each contribute to the conditions of our world, society, and prosperity. For the big picture, starting in the year 2020, we saw extraordinary acts of the human heart in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Such suffering initially led to unity of nearly all humans, reminding us of what matters most. Not material things, not extreme individualism, but our relationship and love for one another. We responded to a common threat with the united human response, which gave us a deeper level of connection. This was essential not only to heal our health, but our hearts. The radical adjustments we made on a global level led us to understand that humanity, with a united and proportionate effort, can and should work towards resolving all challenges that stand in the way of human fulfillment. We can see significant impacts of such actions, such as our emissions reductions in 2020. In addition, we were faced with undeniably painful aspects of impermanence, suffering, and interrelatedness on an overwhelming scale. As of this recording, our world community has experienced 6,879,601 deaths related to COVID-19. With the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic, we also saw the normalization of dehumanizing actions, with disproportionately negative impacts on marginalized, excluded, and exploited members of our society. Wealth gains by few led to further division of our classes, further hollowing out the middle class and causing such significant inequality that so many are struggling to pay for essentials so they can live. People are losing their shelter, their livelihoods, and with it their well-being. Our society's mental illness is a product of the systemic violence and systemic greed that permeates, that we often struggle to comprehend. Instead, we subconsciously or unconsciously look away or become engulfed in unenduring, unfulfilling sensory pleasure to avoid the pain. We've seen the pain of war, the profit of war, combined with war activating demand for fossil fuels. Extraordinary waste of energy and energy infrastructure pushes the conditions required for our civilization's existence further out of reach. All while there are hundreds of millions of people without access to energy and 10% of humans lack food at this very moment. Our governments and businesses the world over continue to invest in systems and machinery designed to support conflict and occupy resources instead of helping starving, sick, and impoverished people, or attempting to respond to the horrific impacts of our climate crisis with a united and proportionate effort. On this trajectory, our only options will be to produce and consume weapons in war, with taxes, investment, employment, and even buying and selling more destruction and more weapons. All the while, our climate emergency keeps producing disasters that result in mass human migrations, loss of life, population mental health deterioration, countries underwater, polluted air and water, destructive energy usage, and food waste and shortages. Our governments and our businesses continue to be active participants in our division, with consistent and intentional campaigns designed to divide people by economic class, race, gender, skin color, ethnicity, religion, political affiliation, geography, sexual preference, sexual identity, being differently abled, disabled, and or immunocompromised. It is clear that our system is designed and administered in a way to exclude and exploit marginalized people. Our businesses and our governments psychologically devalue our most vulnerable and then implement systemic actions to prevent basic essentials for living, all the while manipulating our compassion for one another into inaction and willful blindness at the population level. We can look at the interrelated nature of politics and business and feel the forces of disproportionate, increasingly integrated power, acquiring more victims to dehumanize and exploit. As for our industries, no industry can flourish since we poisoned our society with manipulative information through our media, and often directly from our business, government, neighbors, and ourselves as people. This has led to much anger, violence, and uncooperative behavior amongst our public and those that serve our public. The seeds of dishonesty have been nourished, which is deeply tied to our ability to care for ourselves and each other. We feel the pain of such decisions across a number of essential industries that humans rely on to have a functioning society. Our ability to care for ourselves through the industries of healthcare, housing, food, energy, clean air has deteriorated, in part because of near-term acts of greed. Increasingly and disproportionately, we see decisions to prioritize corporate profits over the well-being of people, with a focus on controlling the narrative instead of neutralizing the harmful impact. When we take inventory of our division in other industries like technology and education, we can see the forces of division permeate from within and externally to a given industry. The final aspect of our big picture is the war within the United States. Our political leaders are engaged in acts of division which are harmful for all humans. We must see events for what they are, including January 6th, and the risk as it pertains to enduring divisive acts from our leaders. When we look at history, we must understand the paths to war and how historic events appear isolated, but are really part of a long sequence, which often indicates a steady, accelerating decline. Such declines can be for entire civilizations of humans, including extinction, or for transitions between world powers. We must come to the conclusion quickly that without intentional action towards peace, we are leaving the destiny of our generation in the hands of those that are actively practicing division.
In addition to the big picture, we must examine the subsequent psychological, emotional, and physical impact on key roles that significant numbers of people play in our society, starting with our most vulnerable, our children. I start with our children because we all start as children. In this era, our children will endure the consequences of our current and past actions. Children are increasingly born into two worlds, a physical and a digital world. Such ingenuity comes with great complexity. If our children are unwell, we must give the situation attention and understand the many root causes of why. Children naturally see the world with clarity through their heart. Children have direct access to their heart's vision for the world. Influences from our culture center and normalize acts of greed, extreme individualism to the point of not belonging, fear, ignorance, and anger, and thus play a significant role in introducing and reinforcing our divided society at a young age. It creates much confusion for a child. As much as we use our words to communicate with children, children see actions. They mimic actions. The only way to heal our children, to heal the children of our society, is to forgive ourselves, love ourselves, heal ourselves, then demonstrate our values through direct action. Anything less is not proportionate to the problems our children face. In the coming decades, our children will ask us how the people of our generation responded when confronted with the undeniable need to evolve with intention. What story will we tell? As for parents, they are asked to guide children with answers about this world they have inherited and helped shape. Our mothers and caretakers are often left with little systemic support. Having a family isn't sustainable without heroic efforts from our mothers. Mothers are often thrust into survival mode, especially during and since COVID. In addition, forces of greed within our systems disproportionately devalue the work and life of all women. Mothers experience uneven compensation from our businesses and no compensation for the disproportionate work efforts at home. They are left to stabilize families in an unstable and deteriorating society. Despite immense leadership, persistence, and unselfishness, we continue to devalue our mother's life, rights, and contributions to the world. This is all occurring during a time when female leadership is essential for our society to heal. Our fathers are left to focus on prosperity while witnessing that no amount of money will transform a child's mental health. The father is left understanding that his efforts must be multidimensional. He understands that going through life denying emotions and pursuing consumption is not the path for a child's fulfillment. So fathers are left knowing they must lead their family through the transition without knowing what to transition to. When fathers realize they are woefully unprepared and not in control to lead the family, they can feel much insecurity, which leads to confusion, anger, fear, greed, and/or violence. Such feelings can cause the father to lose connection with the world, including children and partner. Being unintentional with what is important not only creates pain for our fathers, it leads to the child replicating such behaviors. This further perpetuates the suffering of children and adds strain to the father-child bond, which can last for generations. This aspect of prioritizing work over care and work over loved ones on a systemic scale is a primary driver of suffering in the family, both immediate and extended. Such root causes have a significant impact on our society's wellness. Moving on to the work life of humans, there are industries, businesses, and occupations that are core to our society that have deteriorated as a result of our division. While we can profit from an examination of all types of livelihoods, we must examine the deterioration of work that shapes our society. As people, we have a desire to contribute to society, often through our work. As an employee or business or government leader, we can remember our childhood and how we are reassured with confidence that our economy is the path to a better world. This is the best way to help and care for people. But something didn't sit right. Questions went unanswered. When as children, we brought up the harmful nature associated with our economic system and our role in it, we were taught to be blind to flaws, and that the impact from our consumption and production is exempt from our intention to not cause harm. As children, our hearts knew better, but forces within our systems turned us away from the feelings in our hearts, causing us to look away from our emotions, shield our awareness from suffering, and normalize dehumanizing acts of grief. It is in our nature as humans to want to contribute. As children and adults, we want to believe our work is important for the world. We want to believe and follow through on action that makes the world a better place. We want to feel the gift of being connected to humanity by providing fulfillment for humanity. How we spend our lifetime on this planet is important, individually and collectively. And we spend most of our lives working. We must be honest about our work if we are to transform it and see the big picture based on the interrelated nature of our world. We can and must relate our work and our economic system to all outcomes, both beneficial and non. As a small business owner, entrepreneur, mom and pop shop, we've increasingly seen the disproportionate power dynamics that our largest businesses often use. Such power dynamics prevent individuals from working for themselves. If odds are overcome and small business grows, we often see systemic responses from entrenched businesses that use their power to control industries and markets through questionable practices. Our small businesses simply don't have the access to author and transform policy that governs all businesses within the competing market. This means often at best, one can build their business and sell it to the larger industry player. When entrepreneurs have better visions for industry, or citizens and consumers have better visions for industry that help society, they are often prevented systemically from influence. Our large businesses use a combination of legal, media, industry control, as well as leveraging the power of government channels. Because of this, the idea of disrupting an industry is more an illusion than a reality. And there is immense pressure from our economic system to gain control of disruptors and ensure money flows in a specific direction. It would seem that we are not in as much control of our prosperity as we have been taught to believe, and the concepts of meritocracy and economic mobility are far removed from reality. We can ask ourselves, is it worth dedicating significant portions of our life to this type of work? Would we live a more fulfilling life if we align our values with our work? Alternatively, what happens if we as individuals continue to intentionally or unintentionally adopt the values of our economic system? As our public supporting servants, people who are part of the military, police workers, firefighters, public health and social workers, railroad, utilities, and government workers and teachers, we must understand the immense systemic suffering our public servants endure. We've armed our population with weapons in exchange for profit. We've deteriorated our society's mental health systemically. We've given our divided society the power to destroy communities with a simple flick of a finger. Then we ask our public servants on the front line to be brave and risk their lives to serve and preserve greed. Instead of empowering our public servants to solve root cause problems with compassion, we can all understand that it is much easier to act authoritatively with the powerless than to protect the vulnerable from power. We must protect our public servants with the shield of nonviolence and get those that make decisions with their lives to act with compassion and protect those whose true role is to care for people in a society. Together, we as united people must care for and heal our public servants, and in turn, we must ask them to care for us as people and stand up to acts of greed, anger, and fear. They will need the support of united people to transform such forces from within and externally. Our public servants play a leading role in humanity's commitment to peace by acting peacefully. We must at scale find purpose in work. We have no shortage of root cause challenges that require a united and proportionate effort. We have no shortage of people who seek purpose. We have no shortage of cycles to break, and certainly no shortage of transformation opportunities that honor our hearts and heal the trauma of our ancestors. We can redirect our energy towards industries, businesses, and the types of work that align with the united vision of the people. As for our elderly, we systemically have failed to value our elders. We send them off to be cared for by strangers in the last years of their lives. In addition, we see ageism impacting our workforce, preventing the ability for the elderly to gain income. With inflation and price gouging, retirement is becoming increasingly unrealistic. And so our elderly get to the end of life with health deteriorating and wisdom to pass along. And we largely ignore and do not learn enough from our elderly. We haven't been permitted to do so because our system is designed to allocate our time towards working over caring. And so the elderly are reduced to a storage cost. We must understand that we all grow old and we all gain experience throughout life. Thus, caring for our elderly is not only something important to our heart, but important to our society. We must be more effective at capturing the wisdom of each lifetime if we are to evolve and reach humanity's full potential. As people who have not been consistently included in our society, we can all take a moment to feel the pain of not belonging, which is rooted in our division and reinforced by systemic acts of greed, anger, and fear. We can identify the feelings of our division and relate it to exclusionary actions designed to cause harm. This is not just our pain, but the pain of our ancestors, compounded with interest for generations of suffering passed along. We must understand this impacts all of our hearts, our emotions. We must, as humans, come to an understanding that acts of harm cause suffering for all involved, not only the person whom harm is inflicted upon. The tortuous, relentless feeling of trauma passed along, unaddressed and not transformed, lurking in the world in plain sight, manifested for all of us to see, it is perhaps the most insidious of our sufferings. We understand it is challenging for a society to accommodate all conditions that impact few people, but our societal infrastructure has devolved into an edifice that works for so few and excludes the majority regardless of how one divides the people. And when we, as people, operate in a divided fashion, it further perpetuates the problem. Acts of systemic exclusion and marginalization can be evaluated, understood, and related to greed, anger, and fear. In doing so, united people can determine rules and laws that work for a functioning, peaceful, multicultural world and society. Then, united people can ensure laws are enforced as intended. In response to our division, we've acted to a disproportionate level individually rather than collectively. Key societal relationships must be evaluated against the united vision of the people and acted on. Taking collective action in key roles as employees or workers, consumers, investors, citizens, activists, entrepreneurs, and small business owners can increasingly improve what matters most to us as people. The united vision and associated systemic evolutionary outcomes that support the united vision are for united people to determine. The ones listed, while exemplary, intend to represent systemic evolution instead of incremental. Now that we understand the conditions that cause our suffering and lead to our division, we must understand our current trajectory and the importance of making a decision with intention in this critical moment in human history.
We can be peace by uniting now. Peaceful, economically useful evolution is possible. However, we face challenges as a species on planet Earth. These two charts are from The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. The Changing World Order revisits the big cycles of change, breaking down the typical phases of empires. He indicates where we are in the cycle as a world and as nations, which is based on patterns of human behavior. As the United States and the world, we can expect much transformation based on historical precedents of big cycles. Specifically, he mentions the United States is in decline, transitioning from stage 5 to stage 6. As a leading multicultural representation of the world, all humans must be concerned with the United States' decline because of the nature of our interrelated world. Worthy of consideration in this era of existence, we have additional unique challenges to the big cycles, like how we responsibly use extraordinary technology as a global society, and how we organize a united and proportionate response to climate change. Therefore, as a human race, we can accept our situation, our role in it, and reimagine the world and our life in our heart's vision. We have much to transform if we are to break the cycles of our ancestors. We must ask ourselves, are our leading political parties moving towards peace, or are we moving towards war? Whether it be internal decay or external, how long can we continue without intentional actions towards unity and peace? How are our largest businesses influencing our government? Who is benefiting and stands to benefit from war financially or positionally? And how are profits being used? Which human beings in our world are negatively impacted directly and indirectly from war, and how? Since there is often a disconnect between what people want and what governments do, at what point must we ask our businesses if they will stand up to give citizens a voice? Or will our businesses fail to protect people who are disempowered by our system? How are our businesses lobbying? How are they investing and divesting in people and communities as elections approach? Can we afford to leave it up to businesses and government, or should people play a more active role to prevent further decline? What was the role of business and government and people in the past, during our darkest moments in history, including our world wars? We must identify harmful acts from the past to prevent them in the future. John F. Kennedy has a very relevant quote about peace. First, examine our attitude toward peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. And man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. Let us focus on a practical, attainable peace based on a gradual evolution in human institutions, on a series of concrete actions and effective agreements which are in the interests of all concerned. There is no single simple key to this peace, no grand or magic formula to be adopted by one or two powers. Genuine peace must be the product of many nations, the sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenge of each new generation. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. To break this cycle and restructure our society, we start the United Movement. Together, united people build our system and the world's first trillion-dollar industry. This system and industry will be known as the United Marketplace. Through the United Marketplace, people with similar visions for the world unite and collectively make their heart's vision a reality. The United Marketplace is built on the power of organized consumers, employees, investors, inclusive media, activists, lobbyists, citizens, business leaders, politicians, and whomever else will work to advance the united vision of the people. Together, we understand humanity's greatest visions for a flourishing world for all people, then work towards it by evolving our industries, businesses, governments, and collective and individual actions as people. Together, we design our government's budget and lobby to ensure people have a voice in all government decisions, including how our tax dollars are spent. We construct new industries and disrupt existing industries through inclusive design for a multicultural world. The United Marketplace empowers united people to transform policy, practices, resource flows, relationships and connections, and power dynamics where existing conditions prevent systemic change. The United Movement is where we understand our individual heart's vision for the world and understand where our visions overlap to create the united vision of the people. United values will guide our decision making and will be lived and relentlessly acted upon on the united journey towards our united vision. This peaceful transition minimizes suffering using the practices of nonviolence at scale, manifested in our economy and in our daily collective actions and transactions. With the united and proportionate effort, we transform our greatest challenges into humanity's most fulfilling journey. And so we create our new world this 4th day of April 2023. United people start the United Movement with a call to action towards peace, love, and unity.